I closed the door of the doctor's office and hesitated for a second, hoping that if I didn't take the next step, everything I said inside would just disappear. But my legs weakened treacherously, and I almost slid down the wall. Fortunately, by some miracle, there was a narrow bench under me. I didn't even notice it when I came in. The tears flowed by themselves. I didn't sob. I just sat, staring at the floor, and cried. The noise in the corridor of the clinic suddenly became muffled, as if someone had turned down the volume of the whole world. I distinguished only the dull beats of my own heart. Each blow was given in the temples to pain. I will remember this moment forever. The moment when the doctor said in an even, almost indifferent voice that I would not have a long and happy life. He said the word inoperable, so calmly, as if he was talking about a cold. Tumor. Zlokachesnaya. Brain. I asked him a question that probably everyone asks in this situation. How much do I have left? He didn't answer. He just looked away and paused. That was enough. Fragments of memories flashed through my head. Childhood, school, first job, sleepless nights in the office, dreams, plans that I never had time to carry out. Every minute lived suddenly became something valuable and at the same time meaningless. I was 25. To be honest, it all started not so long ago, about a month ago, maybe a little earlier. Now it's hard to remember exactly. At first, I just started to have a headache. Sometimes. Then, more and more often. It would seem nothing unusual. Which of us doesn't have a headache? The key word is sometimes. I had her sick all the time. Every morning began the same way. I opened my eyes, felt a pressing pain somewhere deep inside my skull, reached for the bedside table for a pill, and only then went to have breakfast. I didn't even think about how familiar it had become. I told myself that I would definitely go to the doctor. Someday. Later. Work. Deadlines. Meetings. Girlfriends. Everyday things. There was always something more important. What a fool. Over time, the pain intensified. The pills helped worse and worse. Sometimes it seemed that something inside the head was slowly shrinking, like someone's invisible hand. And then that same day happened. A normal working day. Office, computer, coffee. And suddenly, sharp nausea. I barely made it to the bathroom. Colleagues joked, asked if I was pregnant. I waved away, smiled, pretended that everything was fine. There would be someone from, flashed through my head as I washed myself with cold water. But the smile disappeared when everything began to double before my eyes. Paul got out from under his feet. I lost consciousness right there, on the cold tile. I woke up in the hospital. White ceiling, antiseptic smell, quiet voices. I was told that an ambulance was called, that I lost consciousness, that maybe it was just overwork or poisoning. I was examined, tested, and let me go home. And I believed it. I decided it was an accident, that I'm fine. The next day, I was at work again. But it didn't get any better. Every day turned into a struggle with fatigue. My head hurt all the time. I swallowed handfuls of painkillers. Sometimes I feel sick again right in the office. I was hiding in the toilet, trying so that no one could see what I had become. And then Michael, my boss, came to me. "Emily, are you okay?" he asked, looking carefully at my face. "Yes, everything is fine." I lied without even blinking. We worked together for several years, and he knew me too well. "I can see it's not," he said, sitting on the edge of my desk. "Take a sick leave. Get tested. I'll give you the contacts of a good clinic." I tried to fight. She said she was just tired, that everything would pass. But he was unyielding. "Your place doesn't go anywhere. You are a valuable employee. Just go to the doctor." I got up from the chair. And at that moment, the world floated before my eyes again. The last thing I remember is how Michael picks me up, not letting me fall to the floor. It was the first time I was really scared. I've already come to myself on the floor. The worried faces of my colleagues leaned over me, and somewhere nearby I heard Michael's voice. "Emily, can you hear me? Hey, everything is fine. Don't be scared." But it wasn't good. They put me in an armchair, gave me water. Someone called an ambulance, but I refused. I don't know why. Maybe out of stubbornness, or maybe because deep down I've already begun to guess what's going on with me. "Tomorrow," Michael said firmly. "You're going to the clinic tomorrow." No options. I didn't argue. The next day, I stood in front of the mirror and didn't recognize myself. His face fell down, dark circles under his eyes. His hands trembled slightly. My head ached, as if someone was slowly turning a rusty nail inside the skull. I tried to disguise it with cosmetics, but it didn't work out well. I looked sick. The clinic turned out to be exactly as you imagine it when you hear the word private. Glass, white walls, silence in which every step sounds too loud. I donated blood. Then there's blood. Then an MRI. At some point, I stopped counting the time. The clock dragged on for a painfully long time. I sat in the corridor, looking at one point, and caught myself in a strange thought. And if they don't find anything, I'll be happy? I was called back 2 days later. I went into the office, sat down on a chair, and immediately realized that something was wrong. The doctor didn't smile. He studied the papers for too long before looking up at me. "Emily," he began, and fell silent. I clenched my hands into fists. "Speak," I said. "Please." He took a deep breath. "On the MRI images, we found a formation in the brain. Zlokostitna." The words sounded dull, as if from underwater. "Tumor?" I asked again, although I already understood everything. He nodded. "Unfortunately, it is located in such a way that surgical intervention is impossible. Inoperable. This word has been remembered forever." "And treatment?" The voice trembled. "Chemotherapy? Something?" He paused again. "I'm too long. We can try to slow down the process, but he talks about full recovery. You don't have to." "How much?" I breathed out. He looked to the side. "I can't name the exact dates." And at that moment, I got really scared. I left the office and closed the door behind me. And it was here that everything happened again. A bench against the wall, cotton legs, tears that could not be stopped. I sat and looked at the paper with the diagnosis, rereading it again and again, as if I hoped that the letters would change. But they didn't change. My life faded at one point. I called Michael straight from the hallway. The voice sounded strange. I was told that I would no longer be able to work. He was silent for a few seconds. "Don't think about it now," he finally said. "Just hold on." I hung up the phone. The house greeted me with silence. I didn't turn on the light. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I just lay down on the bed and looked at the ceiling. Sometimes I lay like this for days, not including the TV or the phone. Thoughts were getting darker. Sometimes it seemed to me that it would be easier to finish everything myself. I was only 25. I dreamed of building a career, get married, give birth to children, live happily ever after, like in a fairy tale. And now I was just lying down, trying not to move, because at rest my head hurt a little less. Despair was replaced by anger. Anger is empty. And so, in a circle. A few days later, I still went outside, and that's when I realized how much life goes on, even when yours is almost over. I myself did not notice how a few days just fell out of life. They merged into one gray, lingering period of time. I barely got out of bed. I didn't turn on the light. I didn't reply to the message. It seemed that if I just freed, time would stop going with me. I didn't want to eat at all. Drink, too. My head ached constantly, but in a state of complete rest, the pain became a little more tolerable. I learned to lie down so that I could even breathe carefully, as if any sudden movement could finally break something inside me. Sometimes thoughts went too far. I caught myself imagining what it was like to just not wake up. No pain. Without fear. Without this constant pressure in the head and chest. These thoughts scared me, but at the same time brought a strange relief. I was 25. I was already thinking about death. One morning I suddenly felt like I was suffocating. The apartment seemed too cramped. The walls seemed to be moved. The air became heavy. I got out of bed, put on my jeans and sweater with a hard time, and left the house. Just went out. No goal. It was warm outside. The sun was shining, and it made me angry. People walked past me, alive, healthy, in love. Young couples held hands, laughed, and ate ice cream. Someone was in a hurry on business. Someone was sitting in a coffee shop and talking loudly on the phone. And I walked among them like a shadow. I was no longer a part of this world. I looked at the strangers' faces and thought they had no idea what it was like to know that your life had a limited period of time. Not once, not maybe, but very soon. I suddenly wanted someone to hug me. I just pressed it to myself. He said everything would be fine, even if it wasn't true. These thoughts broke me. I stopped, turned to the road, and cried. Silently. Just let the tears flow. I walked like this for almost an hour, until the world around me began to float again. A familiar weakness appeared. The legs became wagged. I realized that if I didn't go home now, I might faint again, just in the middle of the street. I called a taxi. On the way home, I also had another feeling of hunger, not the one in the stomach, but deeper. I remembered that I had eaten almost nothing for a few days. It seemed wrong, even with such a diagnosis. I went to a small store near the house, bought something for dinner, and went up to the apartment. I was standing by the stove when I heard the phone vibrate. He was lying very close, but I didn't immediately pay attention. Missed call. Michael. I froze. The first thought was strange and a little angry. Why? I've already said I won't go to work anymore, but curiosity won. I called back. Emily, are you busy now? His voice came out. Not really. I cooked dinner. And what? He was failing. I could hear it even on the phone. We would like to meet. Talk, if you don't mind. Everything inside me is compressed. I was always nervous when I heard such words. Did something happen? I asked cautiously. No, don't worry. I'll come to you. In 40 minutes. Let's go out, go for a walk. The weather is good. I agreed. She put down the phone and realized that she had burned dinner. I didn't even remember how it happened. I stood looking at the black frying pan and thought about something completely different. Why does he need me now? Can't he see what state I'm in? I'm going. I even tried to get myself in order. She dressed like it was a date. When Michael called, I was already standing at the entrance. He was waiting for me with 2 cups of coffee in his hands. Hello, he said quietly. I didn't know if you could have coffee or not. I smiled, weakly. I think you can. I don't know almost anything for sure anymore. We walked side by side in silence, and that's when he said a phrase that changed everything. Emily. There is one person. He treats what medicine can't handle. I stopped, and for the first time in a long time, something in me trembled. Not fear, not pain, hope. We walked in silence for a few more minutes. I held the cup of coffee with both hands, even though it was almost cold. Michael's words were spinning in my head. but I was afraid to ask more, as if each clarification could destroy that fragile sense of hope that had just appeared. "What do you mean?" I still said. "Treats what medicine can't handle." "How is it?" Michael sighed. "I don't know how to explain it properly so that you don't think I'm crazy," he said. "But I had an acquaintance. He was given a few months. Oncology. Officially, there's no chance." I felt my mouth dry. "And a year later, he returned to work. Absolutely healthy. Without chemotherapy. No operations. It's just, all the indicators are gone." I stopped again. "It's impossible," I automatically replied. "It doesn't happen." "I know," Michael nodded. "I said that too. But I saw his analysis. I saw the pictures. And I saw how he was before and after." We turned to the park. There were fewer people here, and the air seemed colder. Or it just started to freeze me. "Who is this man?" I asked quietly. Michael looked at me carefully, as if he was checking if I was ready to hear the answer. "His name is Daniel." The name sounded, of course. Too, of course. I expected something strange, exotic, but it was just a name, like hundreds of other people. "Is he a doctor?" I asked. "No." "Then who?" Michael was silent for a while. He says he doesn't treat the body. He works with something that destroys it. I didn't like it. "It sounds like a sect," I said. "Or like a scam." "I know," he said, "but keep listening." We sat on the bench. The sun was already setting, and long shadows were on the path in front of us. I felt tired, but not physically, as if my nerves were stretched to the limit. "Daniel doesn't take money," Michael continued. "He never promises a result. And he never forces a person to stay. On the contrary, he asks several times if you really want to continue." "Continue what?" Michael looked me straight in the eye. "Meetings." Something squeezed inside me. "Does it look like psychotherapy?" "No," he answered quickly. "Much deeper." I smiled nervously. "You know how it looks from the side, right? I'm sick. Vulnerable. The perfect victim for such people." "That's why I thought for a long time whether I should tell you about it," Michael said. "But you've already gone through everything official. And they said there was nothing else they could do." He was right. And that made me angry. "Do you want me to go to some stranger who works with something that destroys?" I raised my voice. "What if he just takes advantage of me?" "Then you'll leave," Michael replied calmly. "He's not holding anyone." I was silent. Those days in the dark apartment surfaced again in my head. Thoughts about death. I'm only 25. About how I cried on the street, looking at other people's happy faces. "Where is he?" I suddenly asked. Michael didn't respond immediately. "Out of town. Old house. Nothing special. Do you really think it can help?" He shrugged his shoulders. "I think you have nothing to lose." These words struck more painfully than any diagnosis. I couldn't sleep for a long time in the evening. I was lying in bed and looking at the ceiling. The name Daniel came to mind again and again. I tried to imagine his face, but nothing worked. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, the phone vibrated. Message from Michael. "If you decide, here's the address. He accepts tomorrow, but only if you're ready." The address was short. No name of the clinic. Without a sign. Just a point on the map. I looked at the screen and realized that if I went, there would be no way back. Not because I'm being forced, and because I can never say I haven't tried it. I turned off the phone, but the decision has already been made. I left early, too early, as if I was afraid to change my mind. The city was still asleep, the roads were almost empty, and it seemed unreal, as if I was going not to another place, but to a different state of reality. The navigator led further and further away from familiar areas. The asphalt was replaced by a narrow road, houses became thinner, and the mobile signal weakened. I've caught myself thinking several times that I might just turn around, that it's not too late. But I went further. The house appeared suddenly. Old, two-story, a little away from the road. The paint on the walls had long since faded. The windows were clean but dark, as if no one lived inside. There was no car around. I muffled the engine and just sat for a few seconds, holding my hands on the steering wheel. "You can go," I said out loud to myself. But she didn't go. The door was not closed. I knocked. Once, the second. Silence. I was about to leave when I heard a voice. "Come in, Emily." I shuddered. I didn't remember anyone calling my name on the way here. I opened the door. It was warm inside, and too quiet. The air smelled of wood and something grassy. Not a hospital, not a home, something average. He was standing at the end of the corridor. Daniel, ordinary, medium height, dark hair, simple clothes. No robe, no strange look. If I met him on the street, I wouldn't pay attention. But his look. He looked as if I was not a guest, but a page of a book he had already read. "You're here?" he said calmly. "So you're ready?" I don't know," I answered honestly. He barely smiled. "That's the best answer." He took me to the room, without equipment, no strange symbols. A table, 2 chairs, a window, nothing superfluous. "First," said Daniel, sitting down opposite, "I have to voice the rules." "Rules?" I asked intensely. "Yes. First, I don't promise you healing. Second, you can leave at any time. Third, if you lie, we'll stop right away." "I'm not going to lie," I said. He looked at me for a long time. "Everyone says so," I swallowed. "What do you need from me? Analyses? Documents?" "No," he shook his head. "I'm not looking at the papers." "Then how do you work?" He leaned forward a little. "I'm listening." "What exactly?" "What you don't tell the doctors. What you're afraid to say to yourself." I got cold. "Tell me when you first wanted it to just end," Daniel said. I raised my head sharply. "I didn't say." "You didn't say it out loud," he replied calmly. "But that doesn't mean it didn't." The silence dragged on. "Last week," I whispered. "In the apartment." I lay down and thought it would be easier not to wake up. He nodded, as if he had heard something familiar. "And that's when the disease ceased to be the main problem," he said. "What do you mean? Your body seemed later than you." These words hit harder than any analysis. "You're not dying of a diagnosis, Emily," Daniel continued. "You're dying of what you've been carrying for a long time." "You don't even know me," I said. He stood up. Slowly came closer. "You're not afraid of death," he said quietly. "You're afraid to continue living the same way." I felt my hands shaking. "How do you know that?" He looked me straight in the eyes. "Otherwise, you wouldn't have come." He walked away and opened the door to the next room. "If you stay," said Daniel, "next time we'll talk about what you've been hiding for years." "What if I go?" I asked. "You will live exactly as long as you have already been promised," he replied without emotion. I was standing on the doorstep, and for the first time I realized, this is not a cure, it's a deal. I didn't go. This decision was not heroic or conscious, it just happened, as if something inside me had already decided before, and my consciousness was only catching up. Daniel said nothing. He silently closed the door to the next room and returned to his seat. "Sit down," he said. "The first session is always the hardest." "You said it wasn't a cure," I said. "And I won't cheat," he replied calmly. "This is restoring balance." And the balance hurts. I didn't like how it sounded. He asked me to take off my jacket and shoes and sit comfortably. No touches, no tools, just a chair and his voice. "Close your eyes," Daniel said, "and tell me where it hurts the most right now." "In my head," I replied almost immediately. "And here," I touched my chest. "This is not a place," he said. "It's a consequence. Name the event." I tensed up. "I don't understand." "You understand," Daniel said firmly. "You just don't want to." A memory suddenly appeared before my eyes. I didn't call him. He just jumped out, sharp, unpleasant, hidden for a long time. "I was 17, I whispered, "and I ran away from home for one night." "Why?" "Because I couldn't be there anymore." "What happened that night?" he asked. I opened my eyes. "I don't want to talk about it." "Then we'll stop," Daniel replied calmly. I was scared. Not him, but that it was all in vain. "No." I exhaled. "Okay." I closed my eyes again. "I made a choice," I said, "which changed my whole life. Do you regret it?" "Every day." At the same moment, the pain in my head intensified dramatically, as if someone had squeezed her from the inside. I winced, clinging to the edge of the chair with my fingers. "It's okay," Daniel's voice sounded, as if from afar. "You touched what had long since rotted inside." I feel bad," I whispered. "Don't run away," he said firmly. "You've run away enough." I was naused. The world has faltered. I felt a cold sweat rolling down my back. "Say it out loud," Daniel ordered. "What you never allowed yourself to say." I was suffocating. "I hate myself for that," I said. "I think I deserved everything that happens to me." There was silence, and then the pain suddenly receded. I took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, the air did not cut the lungs. "Here," said Daniel quietly. "The first break." I slowly opened my eyes. Nothing has changed in the room. But something in me? Yes. "What was that?" I asked. "What medicine doesn't see," he replied. "Self-punishment. It kills no worse than any disease." I was silent. "Symptoms are possible after the first session," warned Daniel. "Weakness, dreams, flashes of memory, and changes in the body." "What changes?" I asked cautiously. He looked at me for a long time. "Those who scare you." I was shaking on the way home, but it wasn't panic. It was like cleaning. In the evening, I noticed the first. The pain in the chest became weaker. Didn't disappear, but he retreated. Instead of relief, I felt fear. Because if it really works. So what will be the price? The first night I hardly slept. When I fell asleep, my dreams were too clear. Not as usual, in fragments or images. These were scenes. Full. Consistent. As if I was living again moments that I had long tried to erase from my memory. I saw myself as a 17-year-old, the same night. Same choice. But this time, I wasn't just an observer. I felt every emotion with the same force as then. Shame. Fear. Guilt. And most importantly, self-hatred. I woke up abruptly, with a scream stuck in my throat. The bed was wet with sweat. My heart was pounding as if it wanted to break out. But there was something strange. The pain in my chest almost disappeared. That should please. Instead, I felt a real horror. Over the next few days, the changes only intensified. I started eating. At first, a little, carefully, as if she was afraid that the body would refuse to take food. But he accepted, and even asked for more. The headache that haunted me for months appeared less often. And when he appeared, he quickly retreated. But the dreams became worse. They weren't just about me anymore. I saw other people. A man in his 40s who stood in the same room in Daniel's house. He cried and repeated the same name. A young woman who shouted that she wasn't guilty, but no one listened to her. A teenager who sat with his hands around his head and whispered, "I didn't want to." I woke up with the feeling that I had just lived someone else's life. And then I did what I was afraid of from the first day. I called Michael. "Tell me the truth," I said instead of greeting. "Who else did he have?" Michael was silent for too long. "Emily." "How many people?" I interrupted. "And what happened to them?" "Not everyone," he stumbled. "Not everyone could stand it. I'm cold inside. What does 'didn't stand it' mean?" "Some got scared and left after the first or second time," he said. "Some broke down." "How did it break?" "Their condition has deteriorated dramatically." As if he was silent, as if the body was taking back what they were trying to heal. I sat on the bed. "What about those who stayed?" "They either recovered," Michael said quietly, "or disappeared." "Disappeared?" "They just stopped getting in touch, moved, changed lives, names. That's it." I started to feel sick. "You mean that Daniel doesn't just treat?" "I think," Michael said, "he's taking something away, and give it to those who are willing to pay the price." I couldn't wait for the next meeting. I went home by myself. Daniel was already waiting. No surprise, no questions. "You started seeing others," he said instead of greeting. "Who are you?" I asked directly. "And what do you do with people?" He walked slowly through the room. "I'm not creating pain, Emily," he said. "I'm just moving it." "Where to?" "Where he already is." "You're using us," my voice trembled, "like material." "I give you a choice," Daniel replied, "what no doctor gives." "And the price?" He just looked me in the eyes. "The price is true, about myself, and not everyone can live with it." "What about those who disaped?" "They are no longer what they were," he said. "You will stop too." I felt my legs buckle. "Did you know that I would see them in my dreams?" "Yes." "Why didn't they stop?" "Because you didn't ask," Daniel said quietly. "And most importantly, you still want to live." He came closer. "But the next session," he added, "will take more than you think." That night, I looked at my reflection in the mirror for a long time. I looked better, healthier, more alive. And at the same time, I was no longer completely myself. Because I knew, what I get is not free. I came home feeling like someone was following me. I looked around several times, listened to the footsteps in the entrance, but it was empty. And yet the silence pressed harder than any noise. The body behaved strangely. I woke up without pain, without that heaviness in the chest, which a week ago did not allow me to breathe normally. I could climb the stairs without short of breath. I could eat without feeling nauseous. The mirror no longer showed the person slowly disappearing. I recovered. And that's what scared me the most, because along with the relief, there was a different feeling, as if something in me became empty. Small memories were erased. I caught myself not being able to remember the face of a person with whom I was once close. I didn't remember the melody I loved for years. Some emotions faded, as if someone was slowly twisting them out. I realized Daniel didn't take away the pain. He took the weight. The next message came in the evening. "Daniel, the last meeting. Tomorrow. If you come, the changes will be irreversible." I looked at the screen for a long time. The word irreversible was not as scary as it would be. I was more afraid of the thought that I could stop a step away from something. I left. The house greeted me with the same silence. Daniel waited in the room, but this time there was another chair. "Who is that?" I asked. "For you," he replied, "and for what you leave here. You said you didn't take anything physical. And I don't take it away," he said. "Just what shapes you." I sat down. "Tell me straight," I said. "What am I going to lose?" Daniel didn't respond immediately. "You will lose the part of yourself that lives in the past," he finally said. "Self-punishment. Fear. And along with that, the memories to which they are tied will also disappear. My throat tightened. Will I forget myself? You'll forget the version that was dying, he said calmly. But that also means, what? That some people will stop meaning something to you? I immediately thought of Michael. What if I refuse? You'll leave, Daniel replied, and the process will come back. Slowly. Painful. Will I get sick again? Yes. I closed my eyes. My life flashed before me. Not everything is just fragments, darker than light. Moments when I blamed myself, when I lived with the thought that I did not deserve happiness. Why are you doing this? I asked quietly. Daniel looked at me for a long time, almost tired. Because someone must remain between those who can no longer live with themselves, he said, and those who can still. Have you ever paid that price? I asked. He didn't answer. And that was the answer. There's one more thing, Daniel said. After that, you won't be able to go back to your old life. You will be healthy. But emptiness will require filling. With what? Sense, he said. Or just like you. I opened my eyes abruptly. Do you want me to? I don't want anything, he interrupted. I'm just saying that some of those who disappeared didn't disappear. They stayed. Here. Next to me. In its own way. I was cold. Is that the real price? It's a consequence of the choice, Daniel said, like everything else. He stood up and held out his hand to me. It's time to decide, Emily. I looked at that hand, on your calm breath, on a body that no longer seemed broken. I wanted to live, and I knew that life would never be easy. I sat on the edge of the chair and looked at Daniel. His eyes showed neither joy nor regret. Only peace is cold and accurate. I choose to live, I finally said. The voice trembled, but the trembling did not hide the determination. I don't want any more illness. I don't want more pain. Daniel nodded. His hands remained folded in front of him, as if waiting for my consent. Okay, he said quietly. Remember, the price always comes. Not now, not tomorrow. But it will come, and she will demand full attention. He came closer. Stand in front of me. Emily, close your eyes, he ordered calmly. I obeyed. The body became heavy, but not from pain. It was the weight of a new life. I felt something inside slowly let go of me. Fear, guilt, uncertainty. It all started to leave my body. But at the same time I felt empty. Not the emptiness of illness, but the emptiness that knowledge leaves. I will no longer be what I was. Open your eyes, Daniel said after seconds that seemed like an eternity. I slowly lifted my eyelids. The world looked brighter. The pain in my head is gone. The feeling of weakness disappeared. But something in me has changed forever. The first day after the session was amazing. I walked the streets and looked at people. They laughed, argued, held hands. I was no longer suffocated by fear. But I knew that some memories of the past were gone forever. I realized that Daniel doesn't just heal. He moves pain and fear to where they are ready to be accepted. And people who survive get a chance to live. But you have to pay for it, with memories, the past, a part of yourself. The first few weeks I tried to get back to my usual life. Michael was there. He saw the change. There was a mixture of relief and fear in his eyes. Emily, you, he fell silent. You look different. I feel alive, I replied quietly. But something has changed in me. We were silent for a long time. Sometimes it was enough to just sit together. Days, weeks, months passed. My body became strong. The head is clear. Pain is the past. But the dreams remained. Other people. Other lives. Sometimes I see those who gone. They didn't die. just stayed where Daniel moved their pain and fear. Sometimes I think he's still watching, not for me, but for everything that is left after me. A year after that evening, Michael and I got married. I felt happiness that I had previously thought impossible. We laughed, dreamed, planned the future. And then I found out that I was expecting a child. Now, a new life was growing inside me, and I felt a strange combination of fear and joy. "We'll be together," I said to Michael, holding my tummy, "and no one will take away our happiness anymore." But one evening I woke up from the cold. In the dark I saw her, an old woman from the first dreams. She was sitting next to the bed. She stroked my stomach. I whispered something I couldn't understand. I knew one thing. The price I paid wasn't finished. She is always there. And one day, there will come a time when I will again feel her presence as real as Daniel that evening. But now, I was ready. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let the light fill the room. I was alive. This time, I knew I had made the right choice. And so, dear viewers, Emily's story is over. This time. If you liked this video and want to see more creepy but exciting stories, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click on the bell so as not to miss new videos. Write in the comments what you think about Emily's choice, and whether you could make the same decision in her situation. Thank you for watching. Stay on the channel. There are even more scary and mysterious stories ahead.